I just like to, smoke a joint every now and then.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
You dick!
Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com.
There's a lot of things that cannabis can treat and even cure, but unfortunately so far the common cold doesn't seem to be one of them, as all three of us are feeling like crap today. We're all a bit under the weather, but this is too important to put aside even for a day, I think. So welcome everybody to episode 20. We're glad you can join us. Today we're going to talk about Boulder, Colorado, making moves to cancel out past cannabis convictions. We have an article on the 5 painful medical conditions that cannabis topicals can relieve, and an article about Utah voters getting screwed, basically. But first, Andrew's going to start off with a story out of New York State. Andrew, tell us about that.
Well, as it turns out, there's 2 senators in New York that are proposing a bill to allow Medicare and health insurance to pay for medical marijuana. Now, Senator Dianne Savino from Brooklyn and Assemblyman Richard Godfrey from Manhattan have proposed this bill to so people who can't afford or are struggling financially and they could use medical marijuana, this bill is going to allow insurance to pay for it. And I guess what they're saying is it's unfair if you are paying for opioids and OxyContin, and Ambien. Why can't you get cannabis? I mean, because if they're going to use cannabis,
it is a prescription drug, right?
I would think the insurance companies would be fine with that because
I don't know. I don't think insurance companies are fine with paying any money out at all.
Well, but if as opposed to paying for other drugs, it might be more expensive.
Now, does this open the door for the new FDA-approved cannabis medicines for epilepsy? That is what was it? $32,000 a year, was it?
I think it would have to.
Why not?
Yeah,
I mean, this is all up to the voters of the state of New York. Oh
no. So let's say, okay, so your child's sick. They're having 300 grandma seizures a week, and it's $32,000 a year to help that child, and you don't have the money. What the hell are you going to do? I mean, if insurance can cover it, great. That's what health insurance is for.
If this is a medication, if it's a prescription drug, if it's
why wouldn't they pay for it?
Why wouldn't they pay for it?
Well, I think some people are saying, well, this guy has a medical marijuana card for anxiety because he has anxiety every time he runs out of marijuana. So some people are using the medical as a recreational excuse.
But people have,
and they don't want to pay for people's recreational use.
Let's face it, probably most of the people that use it aren't using it for medical purposes. So that's where the insurance company is going to say, whoa, wait a minute here. We're not going to start buying beer and liquor for people, I mean, so I can understand how they would buck that a little bit. They would just...
I know, but where do you draw the line? Because really, so many people who buy cannabis or even drink alcohol are self-medicating.
Yeah, but the insurance companies aren't going to pay for alcohol, Andrew. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're going to... I think what's going to have to happen is they're going to have to set guidelines and say, if you're using...
Well, and I think you draw the line between allowing insurance to pay for it and requiring insurance to pay for it.
I think the insurance companies would have to set guidelines and say, we will pay for this. Well, if you have epilepsy, if you have, diagnosed anxiety, if you have Crohn's disease, whatever, we will pay for such certain amounts. That's how they do it for other drugs. So I can see that happening. That's probably realistic. But if you just want to go buy a couple blunts to go out Saturday and catch a buzz, they're probably not going to be on board, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing with like physical therapy. Your insurance company will cover, physical therapy and massage therapy. But, if you're just going out getting a rub and a tug, They're not going
Right.
to cover that.
Well, it goes
You
back
know?
to what, like, doctors having to be certified to prescribe cannabis. That's going to kind of steer. In other words, the insurance company is going to say, if a certified doctor has prescribed this for X, Y, or Z conditions, then we'll cover it. If you're buying, like I said, if you're buying it to do bong hits at a party, no.
No. We sure do appreciate all of our listeners, and we would love to hear from you. Check us out at VoteProPot.com.
Please send us an email at VoteProPot@gmail.com.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Just search for Vote Pro Pot.
Here's a story out of Boulder, Colorado. Prosecutors in a Colorado county are preparing to dismiss and seal thousands of marijuana possession convictions after state voters legalized the use and sale of the drug 6 years ago. This is really good news. The Boulder Daily Camera reports the Boulder County District Attorney's Office, as part of a, quote, moving on from marijuana program, unquote, has identified about 4,000 simple possession convictions dating to 2008 that would no longer be crimes under current law. So in other words, people who have been convicted, whether they're currently serving or not, I don't know if they're going to release people who are currently serving. I can't imagine they'd still be in there. But if you have a past offense for something that is not currently a crime, the state legislature passed a law last year that allows those convictions of misdemeanor use or possession of marijuana to seal but not erase criminal records if the past offense is not currently a crime. So it doesn't sound like they're completely expunging the records. They're canceled out, basically. They're no longer on your record. So
That's great. That's great.
So that's good news, and I think that's what should be done across the board.
Across the board, yeah.
In any state where adult use has been legalized, all of those people who have this on their record should have them expunged, and I mean expunged. It should not appear.
Yeah, what was that
And
number
it's-
of people that are in jail? It's phenomenal. It's like,
Well, they identified about 4,000 people with convictions that are dating back 10 years.
okay, in Colorado, in the state.
In Colorado, in Boulder County.
Oh, just in Boulder County.
And-
Okay. Wow.
Just in Boulder County. So, across the state, imagine
Yeah.
there'd be probably tens of thousands.
I know the mayor of Denver. The mayor of Denver is calling for similar action.
Well, I mean, they're talking about that in most of the states, I think, with legal cannabis now. They're at least discussing it, and a lot of the legislation includes language having to do with either expunging or sealing not necessarily letting people out of jail, but at least expunging, if not expunging, sealing their record.
Sealing their record, yes. So I guess sealing their record so they can't be pulled out and used against you.
Because like we said before, it affects you getting loans. It affects you getting into college. It affects so many aspects of your life.
Employment.
Yeah, employment, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to me that I see when a state, first they legalize medical, then they go for adult use. And as soon as they do adult use, now this happened I saw it in D.C. the night of the election. The first thing that the D.C. Cannabis campaign said after they won on election night at the victory party was, now we got to get the people in jail, out of jail, and we got to get people's records expunged. So it seems that that's the first thing on the agenda of every pro-reform advocate.
I am 100% for that.
Is legalized.
I mean, to legalize it for adult use, in my mind, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but in essence saying, it was wrong to convict these people. These people were wrongly jailed. It was, it should not be a law. So therefore these people should not be, prosecuted and convicted for it. And now the fact that they was owing to the law that was in force at the time. I get that. But once the law has been off the books, Seems to me justice would demand that these people be released and their records sealed.
I'm looking at a story from civilized.com, and it lists the 6 states most likely to legalize recreational marijuana coming forward. So after Michigan. No, it's Illinois, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Minnesota. So primarily the reasons are different, but it has to do with politics. It has to do with who's been elected, who's running the state, in their stance. So if you're in one of those states, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, or Minnesota, you should be paying attention and getting involved.
Did you say Illinois? Illinois. Thank you.
Illinois. I did say that. I knew it as soon as I said it, too.
The grammar Nazi. Got an article here from thefreshtoast.com.
French toast or fresh toast?
Fresh.
Fresh toast, okay.
That's not, I don't know.
I prefer French.
Okay, I got an article here about topical cannabis medication. Now, they've been making all kinds of medical marijuana products, everything from concentrates to oils to creams to everything. But now apparently these topical creams are becoming very popular. A lot of people are having really good results from them. Now, apparently there's 5 conditions that these topical creams are used for, and they're having a lot of positive effects. The first one is arthritis. Apparently really helps relieve the swelling and lessens the inflammation. The CBDs have an anti-inflammatory property that really helps there. Next, I could go into more detail. I'm just go over these. There's a lot of them. Multiple sclerosis, which is obviously kind of probably related to more the body tremors. Obviously, we've seen how well that works with epilepsy patients. Migraines, apparently you rub it on your temples, I believe.
Wow.
I never heard of that before.
That's pretty cool.
Inflammation due to IBD and Crohn's disease. So I guess irritable bowel disorders or colitis or a lot of the, stomach issues that so many of us have. It works very well for. Psoriasis, there's a big one. Apparently there's some, I read another article about this because I got a little dry skin on my ankle. And a little girlfriend of mine used to have problems with dry skin, ashy skin, So apparently, this is like great. I know when I get my medical card, one of the first things I get is going to be for my shoulder and my ankles and feet. I sometimes get cramps in them at night. And that's what I'm most looking forward to.
So has this stuff been tested?
That's fantastic.
What about you? Now, Phil, you use a topical, don't you?
I do. I'm going to give a plug here. I use a product from a company called Mary's Medicinals. And it is a 1-to-1 THC to CBD balm. And I use it for chronic pain in my shoulders. And it's just the best. It's the best thing I've ever used. I used to have to take 400 to 600 milligrams of ibuprofen before bed every night just so I could sleep, which can't be good for you. And instead, I apply this and I sleep like a baby. It's the best. So I can definitely vouch for that. And I can imagine for things like, if you've got arthritis, anything that's inflammatory. And I think psoriasis, which is akin to psoriatic arthritis, I can see why it would relieve that or treat that. But the stuff is just, and it smells nice. It's not greasy. It's a great little ointment.
I'd be a little suspect of a couple of those, like rubbing it on your temples and relieving migraines, or for something like some of the Crohn's disease or the stomach issues, rubbing it on your belly. I mean, why wouldn't you just take it orally? I don't know. Is any of this stuff been researched, or is this just?
Well, no. These are products that people seem to be getting positive responses from.
Gotcha. Well, that's great.
So-
I mean, it's great. Time for some research.
Well, people buy it, and if it works, they buy it again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be huge because I really sort of think medical cannabis is more of a holistic kind of industry than a pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, I think you're right, Andrew. I agree with you on that. And there's nothing wrong with it. Well, how do you guys feel about this story out of Utah? I don't know if you guys saw it today. Utah replaces voter-approved medical marijuana law with a stricter compromise bill. This article is from Andrew Blake out of the Washington Times. It's interesting because, as you're aware, Utah had an initiative, Proposition 2, on the ballot a month ago, which passed. And what happened is immediately when it was to take effect, Governor Gary Herbert, who's a Republican, negotiated with a couple of different groups and actually came up with a bill that's more strict than the initiative, the proposition that was passed. So a lot of people are kind of bent out of shape, especially the voters, about this. But what's interesting is proponents of Proposition 2 negotiated with mostly the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Utah Medical Association. So it was a negotiation, and everybody came out of the negotiations saying they were happy with it. But who's not happy is the voters, because they're saying this is bullshit. You know, we voted for something. So what's
changed? What is affected by this?
Well, it's they claim it's minor things, but there's quite a few of them. They changed some of the qualifications for patients. They changed some of the laws having to do with penalties for people who, enforcing laws for people who are caught with cannabis who don't have a card or aren't legal. Some of the disorders that you were allowed to use cannabis for have been removed. But the bottom line is everybody said it was okay. They were fine with it. And the governor said, we have the right to change this. And we did. I just feel like what's the point of voting for something if the politicians are going to come in and change it immediately before it even takes effect?
Well, I don't know how it works in Utah, but in general, it seems to me that ballot initiatives when they pass, they don't go right into being law. The ballot initiative is just a resolution very often that directs the state legislature to pass a certain law in a certain way.
That is true, Phil, but the ballot initiative can have a lot or a little bit of detail, and this one had a fair amount of detail. So that's different. They voted on these details, and they're yanking them out. So I think what happened is basically the opponents, mostly the church, said, we're going to make this really difficult for you. We're going to file lots of lawsuits. We're going to, and so I think the proponents said, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about how we can come to an agreement. The bottom line is there's a lawsuit that's been filed already. A lawyer representing the voters and in the pro-marijuana, pro-cannabis group has already filed a lawsuit. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But it passed overwhelmingly. In the state house, it was 60-13, and in the state senate, it was 22-4.
Wow.
So,
well, they want to establish a state-run distribution.
They do, right?
So it's going to be like how alcohol is controlled by the state in some,
like in Maryland, or many states,
in
many states.
Maryland.
That actually, Andrew, you hit on it. A lot of what they said was they wanted to add bookkeeping and regulations and how they track where the weed comes from, where it goes, with a lot more accuracy. And I think some of the proponents were okay with that. They said, yeah, we don't have a problem with that.
But there's some people saying that now they're making it more difficult for people to get access to it. They limited the medical conditions that qualify. And I mean, these guys are they're not doctors. Who are they to say what sickness qualifies? I mean,
right.
And
I think what you're seeing in Utah is just a lot of flat out resistance. We didn't want this marijuana thing. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Right.
And we're going to fight it,
And we're going to make it as difficult as possible.
We're going to make it difficult. Right. And, they can do that. So anything they can do to put up roadblocks or change things, they will do until they can't do it anymore. We'll see what happens with this lawsuit.
One of the big contrasts to the Proposition 2, the compromise bill does not allow patients to purchase unprocessed marijuana flower unless it's broken up into blister packs. And each pack can't be more than a gram. So you can, I don't know how much you can buy, but you can only buy it in 1 gram packets. And that wasn't in the original, as I understand it, that wasn't in the original proposition. So,
Well, I think they're doing that to keep it, make it more difficult for the black market to take advantage of it.
okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. The bottom line is the pro-cannabis folks were okay with, they say they're okay with the negotiations.
Well,
and with the
they're
final
negotiating.
outcome.
They're negotiating with,
But why should they have to? I think that's the point of the lawsuit that's being filed now is why should we have to negotiate? We already fucking voted on this and we passed. We won, But anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
I don't know. It just seemed to me in a democracy, the majority rules, right?
Yes, but we don't live in a democracy. We live in a democratic republic. People don't decide. They just get to decide who does get to decide.
That's it. Yeah. That's exactly right, Phil. And it's exactly where this comes down to. Because the legislators say, yeah, you guys voted on something, but we have the final say.
The system is as the system is. Right. So they're just going to work it through the system, and they're going to come to a resolution on this one way or the other. And I know that most every state, not every state, but most every state, I think that legalizes for medical has purchase limits over a set time period.
Absolutely.
Theirs is just very low. And I guess it isn't what the voters said they were supposed to be. So I think, the voters have a legitimate gripe. This was the bill. This is what it said. If it was that detailed. But again, the system, it's going to have to just work its way through the system until it reaches a resolution.
There is another aspect
we'll
to this
that
we're not discussing, and that is the fact that we're talking about Utah legalizing marijuana.
Yeah, it's
I know.
5 years ago,
That's
they would have been
shocking.
on the top of the list of people that weren't going to do it.
Right.
That's a great point, Andrew. Think about it for a minute.
right there with Mississippi.
We'll take a soft victory here any day.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what the proponents said. They said, shit, this is Utah, guys. Let's not bitch.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't New York. Speaking of New York, this is from the New York Post. An NYU think tank is high on fixing the cash-strapped Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Yay.
A new report out Wednesday by the Rudin Center for Transportation Policy and Management urges the statewide legalization of recreational marijuana in order to get more green into the mass transit. Says Mitchell Moss, director of the Rudin Center, quote, no new revenue sources can match a tax on weed.
Wow.
He asserted to the Post, quote, New Yorkers deserve a subway system that is as productive as they are. It is time for New York to legalize and tax cannabis and to designate the revenues for mass transit. Now, here's a couple of problems with this. The first is that taxes, they like to say they're designated for this and that. This tax is going for, and that's how they get it passed. This tax is going for education. This tax is going for transportation. It all goes in the general fund. It all gets spent.
It gets pissed away.
Yeah, it all gets doled out in political patronage to the winning candidates and their people. And what's left over gets designated, but it gets budgeted. So you can't say that this money from this tax is going to this thing. It's going to the general fund, and they make a budget, and so that's kind of deceptive.
So it's going to help. So it's going to help pay for improvement.
Yes, and if it does, that's great. I know that, or at least I've heard that New York State is reeling just a little bit from the 2017 tax cuts that put a cap on the state and local taxes that you can report on your federal income taxes and deduct to, I think, $10,000. Well, there's a lot of very wealthy New Yorkers who have, very expensive homes that are, now paying through the nose for those things because they can't deduct them off their federal income tax. And so the state tax revenues are taking a hit. And a lot of people are moving out of New York because of that. So they need new revenues for things like the transportation system, education, etc. You know, if this gets adult use passed in New York, great. You know, it's your story, New York. Tell it however you want to. Just pass it and legalize it.
New York has taken forever because, you know, Cuomo. I mean, he's really been the big obstacle in the last couple of years.
Has he?
Yeah, he's been very anti-cannabis until the last year or so, and he said,
he needs to get together with Kennedy from Massachusetts. They need to
Chris Christie.
Put their heads together.
All of them were anti, and now Cuomo said, "Well, let's do a study," and so he's kind of turning around now. So I think like it's the story we did a couple minutes ago. New York is considered the number 3 next state, so it's coming around. They got to hammer out some details, but I think recreational will be within the next year or two in New York. What do you think, Andrew? You're more on top of this than we are.
Well, I used to live in New York City, and I read an article that said if they legalize adult use in New York City, sales in just the 5 boroughs will exceed $1 billion a year.
Whoa, jeez.
Whoa.
That's a lot of people.
Easily exceeded, and theoretically it could hit $2 billion.
And that means they're selling that now on the black market. And so that's money that's not going into the coffers, man.
Well, that's right. That's right. We're not changing anything.
Yeah. Except for who gets the money.
Yeah.
Well, weed's pretty easy to get in New York. They have delivery services. It's like ordering a pizza. It's like ordering a pizza. The guy comes over. He's got 3 different levels. Here, take your pick. And after a while, the guy becomes like one of your buddies, and you send him Christmas cards, and and he's like you get to know the guys, and they become your friends.
Well, stop and think about that for a minute. If there's let's just say it's half that. $500 million in sales just in New York City a year, the taxes would be incredible.
What's the sales tax rate in New York State?
Oh my God, I don't even know. It's probably 7% or something crazy. 6,
yeah. 6. Here in Maryland, it's 5.5, I think.
Right. So I'm guessing
I don't know
New
what
York
it is over there in Virginia.
But there's added tax to cannabis. So they're going to be getting like 25%.
Oh wow! Right.
Okay.
So that's a shit ton of money, man. So
25% of $500 million.
Whew. Yeah.
Of $1 billion.
Yeah.
Well,
of $1 billion.
I figure worst case, but the point is that's black market now, and why not take advantage of it? I mean,
it seems to me in certain circumstances, the people in the black market are going to be against legalization because it's going to put them out of business.
Yeah.
So
no, you're right.
You're right. So like the Hells Angels did in Canada, maybe we should sort of go, guys, okay, you already have a network of delivery. You always got the guys on the bicycles and whatever, the scooters, and okay, just let's make it, relatively easy for small businesses to open up delivery services and processing and little, God, I can imagine all the little tea shops and the, pot shops in the village would be fucking badass.
Oh my God. Yeah. That'd be cool.
So cool. But you don't want to walk into a McBud's,
Yeah, that's right.
We don't want big business. We need small artisanal stuff.
Right. There'll be dispensaries just like everywhere else, I think.
Yep. Well, like that story you told us last week, Andrew, about Fifth Avenue or wherever it was, somewhere in Manhattan, that somebody's already bought a property. And
well, it's a high profile location, and it's like the epitome of retail. And he's going to open up the epitome of cannabis shops. There is what it's going to be eventually. It'll be the Fifth Avenue cannabis. So it's in between Gucci and whatever
Right.
And Tiffany's, there's going to be the ultra chic, that's where you'll be getting
super high end. Yeah.
What's the director? Francis Ford Coppola's. He has that high end strains.
Right. Right.
That's what you're going to be seeing. Some of the people are going to be paying obscene monies for crazy live resins and shatter butters and all kinds of.
Coppola isn't the only one. Here's another article. Woody Harrelson unveils his legal cannabis oil. And guess what? Big Pharma is furious.
Why?
This This is out of High Times. After having a family member diagnosed with cancer in 2015, Woody Harrelson set out to find the safest, most effective form of legal medicinal cannabis for treating the cancer and other diseases, and to bring that product to the masses. The businessman and television star teamed up, and he was in movies too, let's give him his due, teamed up with his longtime childhood friend. Medical marijuana advocate Woody Harrelson wanted to create something like we've never seen before. And I think this is what you were alluding to, Andrew. After 3 years of nonstop research and advocacy, those goals are finally in hand with the launch of the new legal medical grade line of cannabis oils and products that cure a variety of ailments. And there are probably, about 11 of them? Or 5 of them that we came up with. The duo, this is Woody Harrelson and his childhood friend, unveiled the new fruits of their labor during an episode of Woody's podcast, the Woody Harrelson Podcast. That's an odd name for a podcast by Woody Harrelson. During the show, Woody broke down exactly how and why it works, and that you immediately feel the positive effects upon ingesting the powerful oil. So I guess it's like a sublingual or something like that.
Like a tincture, yeah.
Members of the live studio audience got a sample of the product themselves, and the feedback was incredible.
Well, you know, it's weird, Phil. I saw him on a late night talk show within the last 2 years, and they were asking him about weed, and he said he quit. He said he wasn't smoking weed anymore. He said he'd quit.
He quit smoking, yeah.
Did you see that?
Well, he did,
Yeah,
but then I hear every year he and Bill Maher go to Hawaii
Yeah, it was
on
Bill Maher.
vacation.
Oh,
And,
really?
and Bill Maher and Willie Nelson had an intervention, and they got him to smoke again, I think. But he's probably vaping and doing edibles.
They had an intervention.
I always liked Woody Harrelson. I always thought he was a great actor.
Well, Phil, you used to work with Woody, didn't you? Weren't you, Phil? No, Phil was an extra on Cheers.
Well, I didn't work with Foot. Yes, but that's not the same as saying that I worked with Woody Harrelson. He was there and I was there, and we were both working on the set. But he was doing his job and I was doing my job. So I guess I could say we were working. I worked with him. But yeah, I was one of the background actors on Cheers. I used to yell Norm when Norm came in.
You're showing your age, bro. All these young kids are going, Cheers? What's
Yeah,
Cheers?
well, you know, it is what it is.
You were on a bunch of shows, weren't you?
So you yelled Norm?
I did. I yelled Norm.
Norm!
Now, over the last, but I didn't yell Woody. That would have been funny, but he was funny. Now, over the last decade, Woody has been tirelessly advocating for cannabis reform in states around the country, as well as on behalf of veterans. Quote, "These guys deserve it. They need it. They go to war for us and come back with PTSD. Not all of them do, but some do. And doctors just shove dangerous, addictive pills down their throats. It's no mystery that it's all one big racket that's making pharmaceutical companies even more rich and powerful." It was, so I guess they're surmising that the pharmaceutical companies are furious, but it doesn't really say, it doesn't quote anybody from a pharmaceutical company. So
How's he marketing this, Phil? Is it just in California, or is it a nationwide, or is it in Canada? Do you know? Does it say?
He markets it as a product called Medical Drop CBD. It's the product of thousands of hours of research and development. He says, "We wouldn't sell something we didn't believe in, blah, 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 blah." It doesn't say exactly how he's marketing it.
Well, if it's CBD, then he's in good shape. I mean, there's no THC in it? Okay. Gotcha.
So we've got Francis Ford Coppola. We've got Woody Harrelson. Who else was involved? Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Iron
right?
Mike.
Iron Mike.
Yeah. So, you know, the Hollywood is
Gene
getting on
Simmons.
board. Gene Simmons.
Yeah. Speaking of CBD, guys, I've got a story here out of marijuanamoment.com. And this is big. Hemp legalization is officially in the final farm bill. So they've drafted the final 2018 farm bill, and it will include a provision to legalize industrial hemp. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and the top Republican and Democrats on the House Agriculture Committee have confirmed this.
So what are the implications of industrial hemp legalization?
I think this is going to be huge. I think this is the elephant in the room no one's noticing. the industrial applications of legal hemp are going to be huge. You're going to have you'll be able to make fabric that's going to compete with cotton. You're going to be able to make paper products, which is going to compete with the timber industries. So what do they say? 4 acres of hemp equals 6 acres of hardwood forest for paper. And you can regrow, which the hardwood takes 30 years and the hemp you regrow every year.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the fuel aspects as far as the oil is concerned. And the big one I think is going to be construction material, because hemp is such a fibrous material. They're making this hempcrete and hemp block that is just proven to be, superior. Doesn't mold. It's just everything's great about it.
So instead of cinder block?
Right, instead of cinder block. I think that's where people are going to be making billions, is in the industrial.
Lawmakers in the Senate and House agricultural committees announced that they'd reached an agreement in principle on the large-scale food and agriculture policy legislation, and we're in the process of finalizing, quote, legal and report language, unquote. But while there's still more work to do, it seems that hemp legislation has made the cut. This is a big deal because it's not an amendment. It's in the law, and it's going to pass.
Okay.
Hemp would be defined as all parts of the plant, including seeds and extract, as long as they contain less than 0.3% THC, according to VoteHemp. The crop would also be entirely removed from the Controlled Substances Act under the legislation. So there's the biggie. No more Schedule 1.
That's the biggie.
That's the first step. Hemp will be removed from Schedule 1 by this law. So that's a huge step in the right direction. Like Andrew said, that hemp is an amazing plant with so many possibilities. There's so many products. It's so renewable. It grows so much faster than obviously than trees for making paper and construction products and so forth. And it's a huge cash crop, which is why Mitch McConnell's involved, because his state of Kentucky sees it as a huge cash crop. I mean, it's going to take over corn and tobacco and so many other products that are now being grown in southern states. Hemp is going to be the product. And CBD oil is going to be legal, and it's going to be everywhere. So it's a big deal. It's under the radar right now, but once this bill passes, you're going to be hearing about it everywhere.
I read an article that said one of the problems about industrial hemp right now is that no one's growing it. Okay, it's kind of difficult to find. To start really using it as a resource for an industry. So I think this is going to be a huge boom for farmers.
An opportunity for farmers, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the article says.
It doesn't drain the soil of nutrients like some other crops do, and it's like hardy. I mean, shit just grows, man. It's just I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's like grass.
You're growing orchids here,
Yeah.
Normal says, for the first time in nearly 100 years, commercial hemp production will no longer be federally prohibited in the United States. This represents a significant and long overdue shift in the U.S. policy. And I think it's interesting that really Republicans are the ones who've been pushing this, Both Boehner and McConnell have been really on the forefront of getting this moved forward. So that's kind of interesting, too.
It's progress. It's kind of a tectonic shift here. And we need more of this kind of thing to go on. We need the support of voters in Kentucky and elsewhere. We need folks all over the fruited plain to get involved. Make your voices heard. If this is something that you think ought to be passed, call your congressman, talk to your senator, get involved, find out how to do it. There's a lot of good information of how you can become involved in this struggle on VoteProPot.com.
And we'd love for you to send us an email with suggestions or comments on the show at VoteProPot@gmail.com.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Just search for VoteProPot.
And once again, we're very, very happy that you've taken the time out of your day to listen to this, and we hope you'll share your thoughts. Go down to the bottom of the show description. Give us your comments. Stay involved, stay informed, and vote pro-pot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J. I said, I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old Sensimilla